The Cortices technique is one of the most critical techniques used and the most commonly used of the BodyTalk Access program. My son just came to me the other day and he was like, Mom, everything feels funny on this side of my head. I feel like it really hurts. And, so I sat him down and I started doing, the Cortices to him. And I didn't even get to the third position. And he was like, that's it. It's gone. It's gone. I'm out of here. And he just kind of looked at me. He's 14. He doesn't have a lot of patience for this. But I am continually amazed at what we can shift and move with just the Cortices technique. It has a powerful effect on stress levels. If we're experiencing illness or challenges in our lives, there's a certain amount of stress that's created. And the Cortices technique is really powerful for calming all the body systems. There's usually a subjective report of enhanced well-being, right? People just generally feel better when they've had this done. It's a great stress management tool. Um, when kids are living in stressful living conditions or experiencing stress-related illnesses, it can be very powerful. It's not a panacea, right? It's not a cure-all. It often has a short-term effect. And when a scenario is created where we've got more long-term stresses or long-term chronic illnesses, a body talk session by a certified body talk practitioner is going to be really powerful to provide more lasting results. So the Cortices technique refers to the outer skin layer covering of the brain, which includes the occiput, which is important in processing our visual stimuli that's coming in, the parietal lobe, which is important in sensory discrimination and sensory processing and body orientation, the old famous frontal lobe, which is involved in organizing and planning, and then the temporal lobe, which is involved in processing our auditory and our smell stimuli that's coming in. So although the name is cortices and refers to this outer layer of the brain, the focus when we're doing the technique is the deeper layers of the brain as well. So infrared photography studies have shown a correlation between diseases and illness in the body and symptoms and cold spots in the brain. I find this fascinating, right? Those cold spots are indicative of decreased cellular perfusion and decreased blood perfusion. So by enhancing the communication patterns in the brain, we're able to reintegrate these cold spots so we can experience improvements in mental and physical illness from reintegrating these cold spots. Really powerful, just from this one technique. So the technique involves different hand positions that we highlight. And the first one is at the base of the skull where it meets the neck. And we use a hand and we want to make sure that the fingers are together so that we're covering all of the brain. And all body talk procedures are initiated and brought into effect by tapping. So we spread the hand wide to be sure that we're covering both the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And we're doing the same with this hand position at the base of the skull. We want to make sure it's in the center, not off to the left or off to the right, because our focus is balancing the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And so then we begin this tapping. And the tapping initiates a standing waveform to improve the communication patterns in the brain, essentially fixing the communication pattern. And then we tap the heart in order to store that communication pattern. So we're familiar with the heart that pumps blood throughout the body, right? But the heart has also been shown to pump patterns of energy and information to all the cells of the body. So tapping on the heart is very much like storing it in the fabric of the body-mind. And the other important piece with this is with each hand position, we engage 2 cycles of breath. And the important piece with this is we all know that the breath delivers oxygen to all the cells, but it also provides the opportunity for the brain to scan the frequencies of the vibrational frequencies of the body, right? So when we take a deep breath in, the brain is scanning the higher frequencies, such as such as the thought and emotions. And when we take an exhale out, the brain is scanning the lower frequencies, like the connective tissue and the muscles and the bones, and is able to provide corrections to any imbalances. So these 2 powerful pieces. So the hand positions are moved sequentially across the brain in order to cover all spots. Depending on the size of your hand and the size of your head, this could be 4 or maybe 5 hand positions as you cover the center of the brain. So we start with it back here. right at the base of the skull, top of the neck. And we do a breath cycle as we're tapping. And we're thinking that we are fixing the communication pattern between the right and left hemisphere, diminishing any cold spots. And then tapping the chest and storing that new communication pattern. And then we move the hand one position up, fixing communication between the right and left, diminishing cold spots, and storing it. And then moving one more, fixing communication patterns between the right and left, diminishing cold spots, and storing. And then you just go right where that hand position meets the next one, all the way up to the eyebrows, fixing the communication patterns between the right and left hemisphere, diminishing those cold spots, and storing. And then the final hand position is on either side of the brain, the temporal lobe. You feel that awesome feeling of cradling your brain and then fixing that communication pattern. One breath cycle and storing that communication pattern. So alternatively, if you're doing this on someone, they can hold the sides of the brain and you do the tapping with your hand, or they can hold one hand and you hold the other and then you tap with the other hand. Each hand position is 2 breath cycles. So with repeated use, the Cortices technique will have an impact on the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that is responsible for our reactions to stress. So over time, we can actually have an impact and lessen our reactions to stress.